Now I have the Banksia pod mounted between centers on the lathe, but for those of you not familiar with the Banksia pod, isn't this a cool looking weird thing? I mean, it is hard inside. It's got this red velvet fuzz that we got to get rid of, and then you got this gnarly exterior. This is a seed pod that grows off the Banksia Banksia tree in Australia. So it's really, really cool. And man, they are dry and brittle, and you better wear a helmet when you turn it because it's in one of my three things of extreme turning. Oh, it's a little slow. Let's go faster. Stuff's going to fly out now. Seeds come flying out. Junk come flying out. Spiders come flying out. Now we're going to use the Easy Wood carbide cutter here because this thing will handle that and not dull. This is really tough material. You just want to feed it in like so. And you can see already why I have this face mask on. So look how quickly this carbide moves through this. So we'll just zip through here. We have a couple layers we have to worry about. That was the outer layer, the bumpy layer, and now you can see the red fuzz here. We want to get rid of most of that, and actually we did pretty good. So I'm going to take off about 1/8 of an inch there, and then we'll be ready to do some fun stuff. Okay, now this is a converted paint pressure pot. People who paint houses and things put paint in here, you put pressure in here with the air compressor, and then you can spray paint all day long, well, until your pressure runs out. So this has been modified for resin casting. I am not going to tell you how to do it because this is a potential bomb. There are some really good examples on YouTube. I'll try to put a couple of links in there for you to look at. I'll put them in the description on how to build this. But you've got to add a couple nozzles, a couple release valves and such. You got to get rid of the paint mixer. And then inside here, this is where you wind up putting your resin castings. And what the pressure does for you is when you mix up your resin, it's going to have bubbles. This pressure makes the bubbles really, really tiny so you don't see them. So the stuff you cast looks perfectly clear and clean. Okay, I'm making my first batch of resin here, and this is Alumilite Ultra Clear, I think is what they call it. And it's yeah, clear slow. It's really nice, clear when it casts out. This one's done by weight. These things are all different depending on who you get. So I'm not, like I said, I'm not an expert, so you got to read your instructions to figure it out. But you want to mix it very, very well. It's like an epoxy, or it is an epoxy. And so I have 12 minutes to work with this, and I've mixed 6 ounces, weighed out 6 ounces of A and then 6 ounces of B on top of that. Just make sure you put your cup on there, but when you turn that on, because then it will zero out. That's my little postage scale. So Alumilite has colors, so this stuff is intense. I'm going to put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 drops of this for 12 ounces of resin. And then watch how quickly this becomes blue. See, isn't that cool? So you also want to mix that in really well, unless you want the effect of it to be swirly. That's okay too. Now we have my wife doesn't know, I took one of her spray bottles and I absconded with it. I do not have a bunch of cool stuff set up to be able to cast, so I'm scrounging anything I can for a form. This can sit, lean to the side, doesn't matter. We'll take care of that later when we are turning it. We're going to take this now and we're going to pour this in. Let's see if I can get to where Brian can see it. There we go. So there it goes. Hopefully we have enough. Nope, I'm going to need a little bit more. So I'm going to have to mix up a real quick batch and we're going to top that off. Okay, so I had to put a little block of wood on top here because the Banksia pot obviously wants to float. So we'll take this, put this inside here like so. So now you can see it sitting in the center there. Ow, pick this up. So here's my lid. This thing is heavy. I mean, this is really well made stuff. Make sure when you buy your pressure pot, you only put as much pressure in as it's rated for. This one is rated for 80, so I will go for 80. You can actually buy from a couple companies hacked pressure pots that are made for resin casting. This one came with some wheels, by the way, and I had the wheels on it because I thought that was really cool. Turned out to be a real pain because when you start tightening this stuff down, it wanted to roll. So I put little bolts down there instead so it sits hard on the floor and it won't slide much. Big difference. And you want to get this tight because the seal you have has to hold a lot of pressure. And where does that pressure come from? Well, it comes from my compressor. So let's see, I want to close this one. I do believe this one's closed, so we put this on here. Okay, now I'm going to open this valve and you'll see the gauge start going up. And it takes a little bit to get it up there. But once it gets up to about 80, I'm going to turn it off, disconnect this hose, and then we're going to let this sit overnight. Now this might set up or could set up in 3 to 4 hours, but I just want to go ahead and leave it overnight just to be safe. But all that pressure now is pushing out all those bubbles I created by stirring. It's also pushing all the resin into the holes of the Banksia pod, and that's what's going to make it permeate it, go into it to where we're going to have a really cool looking blank.